Mysticism is the experience of being one with the One.
Because that experience is so close, so intimate and so real that it's like the wave and the ocean, you know. It's what is wave, what is ocean. It is that intimate.
Mysticism is something that you come to, and people come to it in all sorts of different ways, through actually experiencing that there is something, that there is some force to life which is greater than we can comprehend just through our minds.
The essence of it is that the human being is the microcosm of the macrocosmos, which is God. In other words, everything that's in the cosmos at large, you and I have within ourselves.
When you strip us all from the physical, strip us from the ego, we are one thing, the spirit that was infused in Adam from the beginning.
Judaism, Islam and Christianity all look back to Abraham as a founder, and so we speak of the God of Abraham, or the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, and so there is this fundamental unity right at the source where it begins.
The Kabbalah is an ancient tradition. It probably is the oldest tradition extant in terms of lineal continuity.
Label Wolf is a lawyer, a writer and a rabbi. As a young man, he was introduced to the Jewish mystical system of Kabbalah and now lectures internationally on its contemporary practical application in mastering mind and emotions.
That there is an ancient methodology and a wisdom that's drawn from the Jewish spiritual tradition that we can tap into, that's very sophisticated in this regard, the climate of inner self.
Somewhere early in the piece, actually, when I was completing my law studies at Melbourne University, I was encountered by an older mystic who was a friend of the family, and he actually introduced me to the deeper layers of Judaism, more at the what's considered the mystical level, but I soon discovered as really a psycho-spiritual approach to life, which I became quite enamored of and have continued studying ever since.
Kabbalah is the tradition of mystical knowledge in Judaism, which adherents believe was revealed to the angels by God. They in turn passed it on to Noah, Abraham and Sarah, to offer a way back to God after the fall. Many believe it to be the secret part of the oral law given to Moses on Mount Sinai. 12th century Spanish Kabbalists developed the Sephirot, or Tree of Life. To them it was a symbolic map, revealing different aspects of God's creative nature. It also signified the transcendent God's interaction with the world. Kabbalah divides the universe into human, animal, vegetable and mineral realms. They are separate but interrelated. Underpinning these realms are concepts of an immanent God, the quest for union with the divine, and the interconnectedness of all creation. Kabbalah has profoundly influenced Label Wolf's view of interrelationships and the seeming paradox of unity in diversity.
Oneness and multiplicity is a tricky business. The analogy that's used in our own source material is that the one sun can shine through many windows. Now, each one of us is a window, and each one of us, therefore, is able to create light within the house, but it's drawn from the one source. So while different peoples of the world and cultures approach truths in very similar ways, there are at the same time differences. Initial creation of human being endowed Adam, if you will, with all the spiritual and physical genetic predispositions of people of the world. And therefore, as different cultures evolved, they nevertheless evolved from the same source. The test of the game is, can we, despite that separation, recognize the deeper truth, and that is that we're really all part of one and are one at the end of the day.
And this is the heart of the mystical stream. We have to move into those places where we recognise that there is a profound experience of non-separation. And that experience is an experience of compassion, of union itself.
Uniting Church minister Paul Sanders runs the Augustine Centre in the Melbourne suburb of Hawthorn. He abandoned the evangelical Christian church of his childhood to find a spiritual home in the Uniting Church, but in recent years has been increasingly drawn to the mystical stream.
I think the real meaning of religion is to take us back into our core life, to take us back into those things that are common, to link us back into the very, the place where life arises from. I hear so many people saying, I just don't believe anymore. I have a yearning for connection, a yearning for spiritual experience, but the thing is, the old ways have dried up. The practices that we are instructing here are ancient practices. They're practices about learning to simply remain in that place of silence, of waiting. The coming and the going of the breath is, for the Christian mystic, the experience of grace itself. I do not breathe, breath breathes me. So the movement of the breath, the following the breath, the word on the breath, whatever the practice is the way that we connect with this pulsating rhythm, not only of my life, but of all life. I breathe the same breath you breathe. I breathe the same breath that the trees breathe. It's this movement, if you like, this quiet, constant movement, and that's the thing that takes us back into our own existence, which is the shared existence.
Now I got over.
I see the mystical tradition as something that lives and emanates in all kinds of ways, but which has in very powerful ways been crushed in certain points of history by a very dogmatic, very power-seeking church. And the interesting thing about mysticism, of course, is that it defies power. It defies authority. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons why many of the churches have been so wary of it, because the mystical belief is that there is that of God in all of us. And if we truly believe that there is that of God in all of us, then none of us has the right to more power than another one. None of us has the right to speak on behalf of God to other people.
New Zealand-born Stephanie Dowrick is a writer and psychologist. She's journeyed from the organised Christianity she was brought up with, through Eastern traditions, and the contemplative worldview of the Quaker. Her reflections have drawn her to the mystical stream, with its focus on relationships. She sees signs of the impulse to connectedness underlying even everyday experiences.
We might be sitting in a concert and we're all spellbound by the same piece of music, and almost without thinking about it, we're joined, we're unified in a certain kind of way. Now, that may not be essentially a mystical experience. It may not indeed be anything like a mystical experience, but it somehow points the way that there is some place beyond words and beyond judgments where we can meet. In fact, there's a beautiful saying from the Sufi poet Rumi, beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. Let me meet you there.
The mystical stream has been a constant, though marginalised presence in the Christian tradition, with luminaries like Francis of Assisi, John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila. It was kept alive and robust through the first millennium in the monastic tradition that nurtured direct experience, but would become increasingly sidelined in the next with the emergence of theological schools and the ascendance of rationalist thought.
We got very rational, we got very theoretical in our Christianity. This gained further impetus, I believe, as time went on through the Reformation and through the Enlightenment period of the 18th century. So much so in the 20th century, the mystical tradition had largely been sidelined.
Michael Whelan is a Catholic Marist priest and director of Sydney's Aquinas Academy. He's long been interested in the mystical stream and its historical journey.
St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, was, I think, a giant on the human stage by any accounting. And he developed a way of introducing his followers to a certain mystical prayer. Subsequent superiors general forbade Jesuits to pray according to that mystical manner. Now, the Jesuits, God bless them, were very, very successful and had a profound influence on the rest of the Catholic Church. So that coming into the middle of the 20th century, most of us had little or no knowledge, certainly little or no practical knowledge of people like John of the Cross or Teresa of Avila or Meister Eckhart, or even Ignatius himself, whose journal, which is full of mystical outpourings, remained in the archives of the Jesuits. Certainly wasn't translated into English until the 1930s. So virtually for 400 years it remained hidden, like the works of John of the Cross for 400 years remained hidden. And it was all very rational, very functional, very willful, I might say. And we lost our roots. We lost the mystical heart of our faith.
Inspired by the 13th century poet and Muslim mystic Rumi, whirling dervishes have come to symbolise the Sufi mystical tradition of Islam. It's a stream of Islam that attempts to convey direct knowledge of the eternal. The Sufis impart knowledge through lineages that go back to the Prophet Muhammad. To devotees, the dance of the dervishes is the most powerful stimulant for attaining mystical insight. Its twirling movements represent the planets revolving around the sun and harmony with everything in the universe. In Sufism, Muslims seek the truth of divine love and knowledge through direct personal experience of God and the bliss of mystical union with the ultimate. It is a stream of Islam that transcends dogma.
Doctrines and rituals belong only to the physical realm. They don't belong to the realm of reality of truth and the spiritualist and the mystic. The whirling dervishes actually are trying to dismiss the influence of the physical so that they can perceive the eternal truth within. We don't travel to God in distance or space. We travel to God by removing the veils of our perception. These veils are the effect of the body and its needs, the effect of the ego and its inclinations. I am better than you. I want more. I want to be on top of you. This is mine. This is yours. Remove these veils gradually. And these veils belong to the earthly realm. Also, if you orbit around yourself, revolving in the motion of any of these planets, you're dismissing the awareness of the physical and achieving an opening to the realms of truth and eternal.
Egyptian-born Mohsen Laban is a retired economics professor and Muslim scholar. He spent 16 years with the United Nations and is involved in Sufi organisations around the world. For Mohsen Laban, Judaism and Christianity are inextricably woven into the fabric of his faith.
Everybody who develops on the spiritual path at one stage starts developing a very great ability to love and to give compassion and mercy. الإمام أبو عبد الله محمد بن إدريس الرازي. I love Jesus as much as I love Muhammad. I love Moses as much as I love Muhammad. They are all from one source, from one God, delivering the same one message and connecting to the same God that I'm connected to. And it makes no difference because we are all on one way coming nearer to God. And as we come nearer to God, we come nearer to each other and we realize we are one thing.
Gary Baumer is a professor of sociology at Monash University with a scholarly interest in comparative religions. He acknowledges commonalities in the mystical streams of the three book religions in concepts of the divine and their shared sense of unity in creation. But he also points to another more divisive parallel, fundamentalism.
What is referred to by fundamentalism is a kind of purism in theology, which says you must believe this and practice that, or God will not love you. It's a kind of conditional form of the religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Judaism. And when you begin to move down that line, you get that commonality of the exclusivity. We, only us. We have it right. You have it wrong. God loves us for getting it right, whether it's theology, ritual, belief, or whatever, that kind of thing begins to move. That's found in each of the three traditions as well.
This thinking found its ultimate expression in the horror of September the 11th and its aftermath. People from 82 nations and every religion were killed in the terrorist attack that claimed over 3,000 lives. To some, it was political, an extreme but grotesque response to America's perceived role in world affairs. To others, it was a violent attack on Western civilization, globalization, and modernity. The attack triggered apocalyptic scenarios predicting a clash of civilizations and religious rhetoric alluding to holy wars and an ultimate battle between good and evil. Islam was in the dock.
Were the events of S11 a religious event? No. If by that you mean, are they promoted by the core beliefs, values of any religious group known to humanity? They were not. One of the comments most frequently heard overseas is that not only did those hijackers hijack some planes and some people, they hijacked a religion. They hijacked Islam and took it to a place it does not belong.
For Mohsen Laban, the actions of Muslim terrorists on September the 11th went against everything Islam stands for.
And it amazes me. How can somebody claim he is reading the Quran and he's really understanding Islam the opposite to what Islam orders and claim this is Islam? This is not Islam. The sentence in chapter 5 that says, if you kill somebody, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, whatever religion, even he's a pagan, without any cause or any reason, as a civilian, it will be counted by God that as if you have killed all mankind.
The people who perpetrated the acts of S11 saw themselves as Muslims and saw themselves as doing the will of God, as far as we can ascertain from the material left behind. To say that that is Islamic is a very different kind of statement. That is to say, would the Islamic world accept that as an Islamic behavior? And the answer is clearly no. The vast majority do not. The vast majority reject that. Just like the vast majority of Christians reject the kind of violence that goes on in Northern Ireland as being Christian. It happens to be related to a particular dispute and driven by certain people whose names could be named. But is that Christian? No.
Behold the fiery cross, still brilliant, a sign of the Christian religion.
White power!
I think the events of September the 11th show the most frightening form, what I would have to call false religion, whether it is Christian with the Ku Klux Klan or whether it is Islamic with Osama bin Laden, of the most frightening sense that, well, I hear the voice of God. It's speaking to me. What I do is what God wants. And everything is justified in the name, if you like, of the cosmic creator. I don't think it's an authentic manifestation of Islam at all. I think the core spirituality, and here we go back to the mystical tradition again, in all three of the biblical religions is compassion.
Bruce Wilson is the former Anglican Bishop of Bathurst. In 1999, he resigned, giving up the busy workload of a large diocese to devote more time to writing and delving deeper into the mystical core of his faith. This core, he believes, has been stifled in what he calls Western rationalist left-brain culture. Bruce Wilson's current book examines the voice of God in the Old Testament narratives of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. Abraham, the founder of the three traditions, believes he hears the voice of God ordering him to kill his son Isaac. He's prepared to do so until an angel intervenes. This story is traditionally interpreted as God's testing of Abraham. But Bruce Wilson has a different view.
I sense in this huge, heroic, legendary, mythic dimension story that Abraham's own sense of what it means to hear the voice of God is growing. And he's having to deal within him with what someone like Carl Jung would have called the shadow or the dark self, which is not the voice of God. Now, what worries me in cases such as the September 11th terrorists is they are so convinced, or seemingly so, that they know what the voice of God is. Fundamentalists of any kind believe that they have the voice of God ringing in their ears, that they are right, they don't reflect, they assert themselves in the worst cases with violence, in other cases with ostracism and persecution, but they are right. But deep religion, and in particular mystical religion, will always take you into that point of relationship with God as the one, the creator, the source, the originator, and everyone and everything will be seen from that perspective, and therefore the other is also in some sense you.
My sense is that there's a deep fundamentalism that lurks in the heart of us all. I think it transcends religion. Once it takes place, though, on the stage of the historical stage, the kind of economic, political stages, it can become quite destructive. But those tendencies lie in the heart of us all. When I say that my faith or my experience as a Christian is better than, I'm already acting and living in a form of violence that doesn't have the ramifications that a bomb does, but it still adds to that overall violence. It begins to build in terms of creating walls.
Paul Sanders is convinced that the way forward relies on forming a different view of God.
We tend to demonise those things we don't understand. This is what I think is operating on a historical plane at the moment. If we go on with a very theistic view of God as other, as external to this reality that we all share, then religion will serve towards destructiveness, not to life. Once God becomes outside of the sphere of our life and our living, then we can evoke God as some kind of authority and power outside of creation itself, outside of the common experiences we hold.
That tomorrow,
Drawing from concepts of applied Kabbalah, Label Wolf insists on the power of individual consciousness. He calls for a shift in worldview from self to other-centeredness.
the purpose is not my benefit, the purpose is the benefit of the other. You can help change what happens in the world by changing yourself. You are powerful. We leave ripples of change that have an effervescent effect that continue on and on, every one of us. You want to change the nature of the world we live in? It's in here.
When we face adversity, the way that we respond to that negativity will determine whether we grow through the process or, God forbid, the opposite occurs. I think that what the world society is facing, not just the American society, through the destruction of the Twin Towers, is an opportunity to reassess what is it that geopolitical international community is all about. The founder of the Hasidic movement, known as the Baal Shem Tov, said that a leaf falling off a tree is an act of cosmic intent that forever changes the course of history. Likewise, there's nothing that happens in the world that is an isolated event. And certainly, the more impactful a world event, the greater is the potential teaching. And I have no doubt that what we're receiving all the time are messages or opportunities that allow us to reach a much higher state of what a human being is capable of. And I think these are the crossroads that we're reaching at this very point in time.
In foregrounding the interrelationship of all creation, the mystical streams of the three traditions suggest a different way of seeing the world. Implicit in this framework is a common humanity and a recognition of the equal value of all human beings. Those who've sought the mystical path believe it offers a religious authenticity far removed from the hostile divisiveness found at the dogmatic extremes of religious expression. It points, they believe, to a consciousness shaped by love and inclusiveness that is the essence of true religion.
The original message is not regarding the detailed application, it's regarding the concept of Godhead, the concept of unity of mankind, the concept of you transcending the earthly and lowly inclinations and become people of compassion, mercy, and love, and these are the real aims.
If you go back to the heart of religion, what is it? It's about relationships. A culture needs the mystical dimension every bit as much as religion needs the mystical dimension. We will go nowhere good, we will go somewhere bad if we are not fostering relationships, communion, community, unity in the human family.
But still I'm praying.
Oh, still I'm praying.
Oh, while I'm heaven bound.
'Cause I'm heaven bound.
Plant my feet on
higher ground.
If we live in the presence of mysticism, which is to live in the presence of love, I suppose, it absolutely changes even the most banal and ordinary interactions with people. How we speak to other people, how we hear what they're saying, how we look at their difficulties, how we think about the environment, the universe, how we think about justice, how we think about rich and poor and so on. In a sense, mysticism, in a most benign but very powerful way, forces us to think about all of those circumstances of living.
I wanna go higher. I need to go higher. Plant my feet on higher ground. Higher, higher, higher. Plant my feet on higher ground. Plant my feet on higher.